Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about the top 10 strongest Goku cards over the course of the game. Now this video has two goals. One, to kind of just go back through the game's history, talk about some really strong cards that featured Goku. And two, this is more so a video for people who haven't played Dragon Ball Super, more so the collectors, maybe people who just like Dragon Ball Super. They get a good glimpse of the cards, see how strong they are, see their favorite character Goku, and maybe they get interested in playing the game. If you guys are interested in playing the game and are brand new to it, I will have a link in the description below to my how to play Dragon Ball Super video. But otherwise, just scroll through the channel, see what interests you. That being said, we'll get into this video. This is pretty much from 1 to 10. Some of the stuff in between is not in the perfect order, and you guys can definitely let me know in the comments below if you guys disagree with the order I put these in. Besides that, let me know if I missed a Goku card. I did compile this with my teammates, so there was more than just one mind going into this video, so we'll get right into it. Number 1, Son Goku, The Adventure Begins. Pretty funny we're starting with this guy, considering this is, Goku at his earliest stages. This card is played in the Skillless Goku deck. That deck hasn't been doing so well as of late, but this card had to be in the running because the formats that Skillless Goku was good, it was just so dominant. The deck just provided so much value out of nowhere, both through the leader drawing and this card playing 30k skillless battle cards for 2 energy, as well as adding a 4-star ball from your deck or drop to your hand once per turn. That would stack if you had multiple of these guys on the field, and that would be really relevant in other black decks where you would play this in like Hachiyak or Black Hand Control Toa. Those decks would also play Goku The Adventure Begins because they basically want to add a 4-star ball to their hand just to get a free 5k combo, because those are more control oriented black decks. So once per turn, just adding a free 5k combo to then just chump block some really small attack is really good. This card, absolutely incredible, but it is number 1 on the list because there are other strong Goku cards that we'll talk about. Next up, we have Great Ape Son Goku Saiyan Instincts. Now, I could definitely see arguments for this being later on in the list because the format that this card was, dominant, every single deck had to play it. If you weren't playing this card, you're in a really bad spot. This card, man, it's such a funny story because it came out of Draft Box 4, which is the first draft box that really started the whole draft box fiasco. If you guys are really new to the game, you might not know what I'm talking about, but basically cards like this saw huge price spikes because they were so strong and so hard to get. This card started out at like $8-ish. Like, who thought that a draw 2 from the drop area for paying 2 energy would ever be good? Keep in mind, back when this card first came out and was revealed, we were in much more aggressive metas, so no one really thought that paying 2 for this would be great. Plus, like, getting it to the drop was a bit awkward because, like, yeah, you could combo it, but one of the rules of Dragon Ball Super is you don't really ever want to combo to neg. But then there just came out to be a lot of ways that there were natural ways to put this in the drop area. Even in other strategies, comboing it wasn't the worst thing. And then in more mid-range and control decks, paying 2 to draw 2 was really good. This card shot up to anywhere from 100 to 150 plus per copy in its prime. Now it's been reprinted, which definitely brought the price down a bit, and it's not nearly as essential as it once was, which is really nice because, it's definitely a price barrier that's been taken down in terms of getting into the game, which is really good. But it's still a really solid card, lots of history with this card in the Dragon Ball Super card game. Then we have SS4 Goku Heartfelt Plea. Honestly, if it wasn't for this past format, this card probably wouldn't even make the list, but it's definitely been a really solid boss monster, both in set 9 with Serge Goku, which is another Goku we'll talk about later in the video, and also in the more current format with Dark Broly being able to drop this card. This card is just the epitome of free. Being free and a boss monster, that's a really strong card right there, right? So you have Offering, which makes your opponent either lose a life to the drop area, or you get to draw 2 cards, and he does get played for free when you sack a 25k or higher red battle card during your Awaken. And playing him for free is one of the craziest things about the card. Even though it's red-yellow, this could literally be played in any deck. Like I mentioned before, this is currently being played in the mono black Dark Broly deck, so very cool to see that this card is still doing a lot of cool stuff even 4 or 5 sets later. Then we have Son Goku, the Rival Seeker, and Ultra Instinct Goku Energy Explosion. Now this really is like a combo. I'm not really talking about one card. I am talking about pretty much these cards together in terms of a combo. But basically what they do together is they allow the burn combo with Catastrophic Blow to happen in the Invoker control deck. If you guys are coming from any other card games, you would know that a control deck really is like a slower kind of take control of the pace of the game sort of deck, where you basically get to tell your opponent what they can and can't do. And the win con for this control deck is playing Goku Rival Seeker, then using his skill to grab 2 copies of Catastrophic Blow ideally, but of course you can grab other extra cards, and then you put Ultra Instinct Goku Energy Explosion on top of Rival Seeker. That gets you a bunch of energy back, and then you can, a turn for magic, you can shoot your opponent, basically burn them for a lot of their life, and win the game that way. So this is a really strong combo. I mean, Invoker has, I think there was like one format where Invoker really ran the game, but you know, for the past several formats, Invoker's been a presence, right? Like, it's a deck you've had to prepare for. It's a deck that you couldn't really ignore, especially if you're playing a slower mid-range or other type of control deck. If you're playing aggro, probably got a pretty good time against Invoker, but besides that, this combo is definitely a iconic duo for causing a lot of headaches in the game, and they feature your boy Goku. Then we have Kaoken Goku, Defender of Earth. So what's funny about this card is it wasn't actually too popular in red-green decks. There was a format where it was actually kind of good in like red-green Broly and Clash Goku and some of those sorts of, you know, red and green decks. But where this card really shined was in Black Shenron. You would think, you know, Black Leader, if you're very new to the game, how did that card play this? It's actually essentially a rainbow color deck. It played anywhere from blue and then this red-green card and a lot of black and maybe sometimes yellow for certain cards like Flying Nimbus. But the point of this card was just to be played off of a skill. You wouldn't actually play it for 7, and you wouldn't even play it for its, you know, reduced cost of 5 via its permanent effect. But this card was such a beast when it hit the field. Basically, you got to rip your own life down to 1. So in that sense, when you're going for game, every single life you take is just extra card advantage when you're going for game. And you got to look at your opponent's hand and remove a battle card or remove any card from it that would get in your way of winning the game. Being a dual attack triple striker anywhere from like, you know, 75k plus was honestly really insane. This card, you know, wasn't really broken on its own. It did require that entire combo of being able to be played for 0 energy essentially to be incredibly broken. This card hasn't seen too much play since then, but still a really iconic Goku card that definitely defined or helped define the format that it was in. Then we have Heightened Mastery Son Goku and Son Goku Path to Greatness. Now what's funny is Heightened Mastery Son Goku was actually out for a while before Path to Greatness came out. Path to Greatness came out as what was called a power booster, which is essentially a promo pack that came out to support older strategies, right? So Path to Greatness was released to support Goku's lineage and swap strategies that played Heightened Mastery. So basically Path to Greatness would get you right into Heightened Mastery. Before Path to Greatness was a thing, there were other swap steps you kind of had to go through that costed more energy and took more turns and took more setup. Basically, when Son Goku Path to Greatness came out, took away all that, and being a barrier battle card where counterplay wasn't too popular at the time, meant this card was almost always going to get you into Heightened Mastery Son Goku, because him himself having barrier meant that he couldn't really be removed too easily, and then Heightened Mastery having deflect meant that nothing could really stop him. There were a few counterplays that could like rest him and stop him from attacking that turn, which were pretty good to counter this, but still a really iconic combo that definitely led to a lot of games being won, right? And then Path to Greatness, I just remember when this card came out, man, it like shifted the Dragon Ball Super culture. Like, I just remember going to so many tournaments trying to get this promo. It was super expensive upon release. Now it's actually very, very cheap. It's been reprinted several times, and this strategy is still playable in certain decks, like maybe a Topo Leader or a Jiren Leader, but definitely not as strong as they once were. But in the format that these were good, man, they ran the meta for sure. Then we have Son Goku Hope of U7. So this one's a bit of an iffy one to be put in this late stage of the list, but hear me out, right? So this card never really saw too much meta play. It did see play in some really early Victory Strike decks. We'll talk about Goku Victory Strike in a bit. But yeah, this card was looking to be somewhat of a problem in the Set 13 meta, which is coming out at the end of May. So with that in mind, this card was preemptively banned, or limited to 1 rather. But being limited to 1 definitely means this card's worthy being talked about on this list, because if it's limited to 1, obviously there's a power issue there that means it's deserving of being limited to 1, right? So basically what this card was going to allow you to do was play Victory Strike on turn 2. And if you're new to the game, Victory Strike says if you do 1 damage with Victory Strike, you automatically win the game. If you're from Yu-Gi-Oh, that might sound familiar in terms of like Victory Dragon. If this card, you know, puts your opponent's life to 0, you win the match. A little bit different, but kind of in the same realm of thought, right? So Goku Hope of U7 was limited to basically prevent that combo from being a thing, because Victory Strike throughout the game's history has caused a lot of unfun environments for players, especially new players. So got to give some kudos to Bandai for dealing with that problem before it ever really came to fruition. And then here we go with Goku the Awakened Power, one of the top cards for Goku in the Dragon Ball Super card game. It's also the most expensive card in the game. I think at the time of recording it's sitting at around $1,500 if you own this card, which I got one of these for $400 back in 2018, I want to say, roughly around there. Got one for $400, man, that stonks right there, right? So yeah, this is one of the most collector savvy cards in Dragon Ball Super, and for a long time it was a meta defining card. It was a very, very strong card. There were certain decks that just never had to attack the opponent's life, and then you could play Goku the Awakened Power, and even though it has Ultimate, which says you can only play 1 copy in your deck, some of these decks just had absurd draw power. A lot of these decks could even search for this card via different card skills. So with that in mind, never attack your opponent, play this, Victory strike them at 8 life if they had no self-awaken, and they'd really be very limited in what they could do to defend against this because his attacks and skills cannot be negated. So unless you had other battle tricks, which at the time this card was super popular, those types of battle tricks weren't even really a thing yet. So yeah, this is definitely gonna be one of the strongest Gokus of all time. And then we have Serge Goku, another really strong Goku leader to talk about. There's only one card after this, and the reason that this is not the last card on the list is because this card was errated and not banned. But this card was definitely in the running for the strongest Goku card in the game's history. This leader literally ran a format. Like, we talked about some cards that ran formats, but this leader ran a format. There were not many leaders that ran formats. There were a few here and there, but this is definitely one of them. This leader getting free battle power on both players' turns was such a ridiculously strong effect in terms of defense, right? Once you learn how to play the game, you learn that base power added to your leader card just accrues so much value. You'd have to be a 25k or higher attacker, which is not super easy for all decks to just like spam to the board willy-nilly, right? You know, 20ks, 15ks maybe, but 25ks not so much. It's also just the added utility of negating skills and the other ability to you know, get critical when you're attacking for a big swing. This leader was absolutely absurd, and being able to awaken whenever you wanted, this helped a lot with Heartfelt Plea, which is a card we saw earlier. This leader was absolutely insane. But for the strongest Goku card, we got to talk about SS3 Goku Heightened Evolution. This card is currently banned on the Dragon Ball Super Forbidden and Limited list. It's got a reboot leader, which is essentially a dumbed down version of the same leader. It's a little bit worse off, you know, in some people's opinions. It kind of does some different things, so I guess it could be somewhat debated on whether or not this one or the other one's better. But this leader was another leader that just absolutely ran a format. There was a tournament in 2018 where, there were several tournaments, but one tournament in particular where this leader, you just saw red, blue SS3. That was literally the entire format. Then, you know, weeks after that, we saw like mono blue SS3, blue green SS3, blue yellow SS3. So people started to kind of mess around with the color variants. But the problem with this leader was it restricted deck building so much in the sense that you could only play, you know, blue splash with X, and it had to be this leader. So they eventually ended up banning leader to create a more diverse meta environment, which was very, very good for the game. But these are your strongest Goku cards, guys. I do hope you enjoy them. If you're new to the game, hope you saw some really cool Goku cards that you're interested in. Again, link in the description for how to play Dragon Ball Super. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.